The opinions on Scoop Squad, Truth Squad are those of the hosts and the guests, and not those of WVRC Media. Copyright 2023.
Hey Charleston, it's Ashley Switzer, and I'm your host for the Scoop Squad Truth Pod. This is our 63rd episode, I think. We are in the middle of a steamy summer.
The summer's not the only thing steamy in this town.
Whew. That's funny. Good one. Actually, it's not. It's not very funny. Okay, so let's dive right in because we have a pretty packed show this evening.
Well, why don't we introduce our panel here?
Yeah, let's. We've got Ron over there. Say hey, Ron.
Hey, Ron.
Ron is is my executive producer. We've got Adam Knopf, who is a former. I always say formal. Are you formal?
He's dressed in a suit.
You look
wear
formal.
He's got a tie on.
I try to look as formal as possible.
Adam Knopf is a former council person. And Adam, what do you do for a day job? Tell us.
I work as an inventory logistics analyst.
Oh, that tells me a lot.
Yeah. Whew. Sounds like
it sounds important. It sounds formal, really.
It does sound very formal, very technical. And then we also have Elisa Payne, who is actually one of our sponsors. She is owner of Eggplant on Bridge Road. So this evening we have a few things to discuss. We want to touch a little bit on the CPD situation with Chief Tyke Hunt that really blew up last week and the week before after this podcast aired, episode 60 with Jenny Harless. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that. We've got a guest on the phone with us her name is Pam Garrison. She is with the West Virginia Poor People's Campaign. And I learned about Pam in yesterday's Charleston Gazette. And we are going to talk about Department of Corrections. Pam is going to share with us a lot of the research that she has done. And what else are we going to talk about?
Well, before we get into the meat of it, let's
our sponsors.
Acknowledge our sponsors.
Yeah, I do want to do that because
one of them's here, So.
Elisa's here, but so people that have decided to attach their names to this podcast, and I'm going to tell you, it is a very controversial podcast. It just is. I'm a very controversial person.
You are a lightning rod.
Well, I had someone tell me today that, you have more silent admirers than you probably know.
Oh, I believe that's true.
And I'm like, you know what? You guys need to not be silent. Like, we need more people speaking out, right?
No, there are people that are afraid. When I got off of city council, I was pleasantly surprised by the number of people that came up and said, I just want to thank you.
Yeah.
For everything that you did. There's a lot of people that feel the same way that you feel, but they're not ever going to speak out.
Well, let's go over the sponsors, and then we'll mention
these brave
them a little
people,
bit later.
Right?
Yeah, these are brave.
Have attached their names to this podcast. Go ahead, Ron.
Because they believe in what is right.
That's right. Transparency and accountability. It's really not that hard.
One sponsor is Chris Walters from Integrity Insurance, and Integrity Insurance is on 16 Capitol Street. If you go eat downtown outside, his and his staff's office is right there, kind of between the Boulevard and Virginia Street. You can reach them at iigwv.com, but Integrity Insurance specializes in auto, home, life, business, workers' comp, but they're emphasizing pet insurance. It's basically health insurance for dogs and cats. It covers that special food they might need, any illness, surgeries, or medications they need. Also, Eggplant on Bridge Road. Anything but ordinary. Ordinarily, I'd be able to say that. And that's eggplantshop.com. Anything special you'd want to mention about?
You got anything up there that you just want to shout out right now?
We did get a shipment of bog bags in. If anyone's excited about that, we finally got stocked. So
I'm going to have to come up and look at the different colors because I love my bog bag. Awesome.
Okay, see, that's kind of cutting edge sponsorship information.
It really
to
is.
keep this thing sharp. Also, T Graphics on the west side by the always sharp Claudette Hudson, recently married, so I don't know if she's changed her name or not. Anyway, tgraphics.com, screen printing, embroidery, been around since 1984 over at 312 Buchanan Street, which is on the west side, close to where the old Kelly's Men's Store was, on that part of the west side. And they're at 345-4816. Also, a fairly new sponsor, Call Ditto Marketing. Keep your brand moving. CallDitto.com.
All right. So thank you, Ron, for that. Thank you, sponsors. And I would like to say that if you want to sponsor this podcast, and we're always looking for new sponsorships, you can contact Ron.
You could go to our email address, scoopsquadwv at yahoo. No, I'm sorry. scoopsquadwv at gmail.com. I don't even have a Yahoo account.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from.
Scoopsquadwv at gmail.com, or you can call me on my personal hotline, 304-395-1111. You know that number is special because it's all ones.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. All right. Thank you, Ron. All right.
Thank you.
Let's start off with talking just a little bit about what happened in the media last week. On Talk Line with Hoppy Kercheval, we had Kevin Baker, attorney Kevin Baker, on with Dave Allen.
Also on Hoppy Kercheval show.
Yeah, and also on Hoppy
Talk Line.
Kercheval show. So I guess what I really just wanted to say is that we know that there are other women out there
Who have had dalliances with the former.
Yes.
I keep saying former.
Well,
He's not former yet, but
not
the
yet.
police chief.
Yeah.
Or maybe some interactions, so to speak.
Yeah, we do know that, and we've kind of. And I just have to say that I feel like these people talking over and over, Kevin and going on Hoppy and on with Dave, I just feel like they've done themselves a little bit more harm than good. They've kind of helped us out a little bit because they're talking an awful lot. And the more they talk, the more we connect the dots, the more we find falsehoods.
The cover up is always the downfall.
Yeah, because you can't. When you lie, it's hard to keep track of all the lies out there. But we do know that there are women out there who have, and Jenny said it herself. Like this is, Jenny Harless had the relationship with Chief Tyke Hunt, and did not succumb to his sexual advances, and he made many of them, and she did not. And as a result of that, he discontinued the relationship. There wasn't going to be a friendship. There was going to be no more talking if she did not have sex with him, and she didn't. So I feel like it might be easier in a way for her to come forward. And even though she didn't have sex with him, she is still getting crucified, so to speak, with character assassinations and anonymous text.
Not to mention the misuse of the FBI.
Right. The interrogation.
Looking at this, I think that's going to come down to haunt them locally.
And going to her place of work. Not only did they found her at home, but the FBI and the West Virginia State Police went to her place of employment at the state capitol and spoke with her boss. Now, I'm sorry, but that would unnerve anyone. She sought therapy for this. She's just been dismissed. But I think that it's almost easier for her to come forward, as hard as it is, because she didn't give in to those advances, right? He didn't have any power over her as far as maybe her career, right? Or didn't really have anything that he could do for her to advance her career. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Right.
So I know that there are women out there that that maybe felt like they didn't have a choice. Maybe felt like they had to satisfy his sexual advances in order to get anywhere within maybe the CPD.
Well, you think of the situation that a woman might be in where he could take advantage of it.
Right.
It's usually because they have some kind of interaction with the police, either maybe a charge or a potential
Yeah.
charge that they don't want to see happen.
Yeah. And what does this do? I mean, what does this do for people's trust and confidence in our law enforcement right now? I mean, even the good ones that are law enforcement, you're going to have a very difficult time trusting any of them, I would think, at this point.
Well, I feel sorry for the 99.9% of
Absolutely.
the honest law enforcement
Yeah.
officers who, are probably embarrassed by this
Right.
or angered by his behavior.
And I don't understand the argument that city council people are making and the administration is making that this was just a personal mistake. And, we all make bad choices.
Not when he's admitted that this is not his first rodeo.
No. And the people doing this, the people on council and mainly the people on council, the people that are backing him and just saying that this is a personal mistake, they are choosing their friendship with the Hunt family over what is right.
And if you're blaming this woman in any way for her behavior, you're part of the problem. And probably in other cases, you're pro Me Too movement. But in this case, you're choosing to ignore that.
Yeah.
I think that's so disappointing. As a former council member, when I heard about it, when I listened, to the podcast, my heart just sank to the bottom of my stomach because, first of all, obviously everybody just about everybody in town, knows the police chief, so to hear these, credible allegations, as said on the podcast initially, just city council member, I was thought, oh my goodness, this is going to be investigated. This is going to be just an absolute nightmare. And I'm sure the council people.
I'm going to let you finish that thought, but what you just said here is important. You said credible, okay? Jenny is telling the truth. And Kevin Baker said on the radio statewide that both Jenny and Tyke, everybody agreed on what happened. There was no discrepancy on what happened. Everybody agreed on what happened, which means that I wonder if he listened to the podcast, because if Tyke agreed to everything that Jenny said, and if Kevin Baker actually knew that what Jenny was saying was true, that the Chief Hunt pulled her by her wrists on top of him while he was naked, that didn't like red flag, like alarms, like this might be something that maybe this was criminal. We don't know.
Yeah, if you're a city council member and you're framing it as, this is, a personal mistake, then you're just literally just covering the situation up. You cannot do these kind of things, with your city issued cell phone, at your city issued office, and think that this is just some kind of private ordeal. It's not a private matter.
If this happened at my office, same situation, I'd be fired immediately.
Yeah, I just...
Especially if they went to human resources.
And shame on you. Shame on you, council people.
And actually, I think you're right about, so the city attorney, Kevin Baker, goes on a statewide media program and basically says that the stories corroborate.
Yeah.
And, admits that, ultimately, he was pressed about, well, who gave out the punishment? Apparently
Right.
the mayor gave out the punishment
Yes.
per Kevin's statements.
Yes.
A
punishment that is alleged to never have happened. Let me just say that. A punishment that everybody said, leadership said that he got a 3-day suspension. But guess what? Not everybody within CPD believes that.
I'll have to take your word for that one. I don't know.
I think there are people that would have had to have had extra responsibilities and duties if he was taking 3 days off.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the mayor, knows
That
it.
would
Obviously,
that would have been a disruption that more people would have known about.
Go ahead.
yeah,
Ed.
so the mayor obviously knew about the situation. She's not going to, issue a punishment for things that she doesn't know anything about, especially, when it's her police chief.
Arbitrarily just say, let's give him a 3-day suspension.
And obviously, the city attorney is there, and if he agreed that Harless's statements, matched Chief Hunt's statements, then, he knew what happened. And for them to only come up with a 3-day punishment, without, investigating it based on everything that Ms. Harless said. I mean, if you're a council member, I don't see how you can go into those council chambers and not ask for an investigation, as to what happened. And even if you believe that it is just a personal matter, which I don't see how you could possibly do, even if you believe that, then you should still be calling for an investigation to clear the chief, to say, hey, this was a private matter. It had nothing to do with any kind of city resources or anything like that. But, for council people to go in there and say this is a private matter, they are basically being complicit in the cover-up.
Cover up. It's a cover up. I mean, I'm just going to say it.
That was the only thing that was covered up. If you've seen the pictures, you also see his city-issued uniform in some of the pictures.
I mean, it's just not, and for people who say that we on the podcast are adversarial to this administration.
It's the newspaper that's saying that, and that's a trope. They've used it in an article and in an editorial.
Well, and Mayor Jones said it on statewide.
So, I don't know
radio.
how they could possibly know that you are adversarial with the mayor if they haven't listened to any of the podcasts, which I doubt they have. They may have listened to that one.
Right.
But, they basically look for pigeonholes to place people. That makes it easy for them to do their job. And I hate to say that, but, the Gazette Mail is not the Gazette of 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
I'm sorry, it's just not. You don't have the talent, the level of reporting, the resources, and you just have to look for tropes to make your job easier. And I defy them to honestly listen to all of our podcasts and say we're just here to be adversarial.
And I want to give credit, to Ron and Ashley, because I don't hear anyone else, in the media doing that. Were it not for this podcast, this story would have been completely buried.
Right.
And nobody would be discussing it, and life would be continuing on.
That's right.
As normal. So,
I mean, shout out to Jenny,
in a lot of ways,
too, for having the courage.
But she took
She
tremendous
came to
step.
us, and she made that first step to come to us. And, without her, I mean, I don't know. I just want so badly for council, for people to do the right thing. I just don't understand how you don't call for an investigation. If you didn't do anything wrong, fine.
Well,
let's find out what happened. Clearly we know, everybody's agreeing on what happened.
We know what happened, just nothing has been done about it.
Right.
And what Danny said, if he'd been mayor, I can't remember if he told me that or if that was what he said.
No, he said on state line.
Oh,
He said
did
it on
say there
statewide
too?
radio.
Okay, we were at lunch last week. But he said, Tyke, you have civil service under your former rank. You're not going to be fired, but you're no longer going to be the police chief.
Yeah.
You'll still have a job.
Right.
And, in any other situation, that's what would have happened.
Well, and like I said earlier, there are others. And if you are one of these women and you are ready to talk or you want to reach out to someone, I just want to make that invitation and that offer.
Right. Come to us.
To call me, to Facebook message me.
You can
I will keep you anonymous as, if that is what you prefer, I 100% will respect that. But people have to start. We have to start. Other people have to start coming up. Stepping up and talking. And Charleston needs to start going to council meetings, and citizens need to call their council people and tell them that they deserve this. Jenny Harless and all the others deserve justice and deserve an investigation. I mean, if Charleston doesn't start speaking up, this goes away.
Right.
And he can do it again.
Well, you can find us. You can email us if that makes, is easier for you. scoopsquadwv@gmail.com, or go to our Facebook page and instant messages.
Yeah. And then one last thing, and I'm going to shut up about it. But Danny
and then
Jones,
we can take a break.
And we're going to come back with another guest that's going to make it just a very easy, smooth transition into what we're going to talk about next. But I think it was actually Danny Jones who said that I didn't conduct the interview, that the interview was poorly done, and that I didn't ask the right questions. And I just want to let everyone know. Here's the disclaimer. I am not a journalist.
No,
I am not.
If we wouldn't be here if
I'm not an investigative reporter. I'm not a journalist.
No.
I am none of those things.
We shouldn't have to even be here.
No, we shouldn't. And it's really sad that we are needed.
Right.
And we are. But this is a place, this is a forum for discussion. That's it. We have developed this podcast, created this podcast as a forum for people to come on and help us get transparency and get accountability in our local government. So, if I don't ask the right questions, then I really didn't know what to say in that interview.
Well, honestly, she told her story.
She
that was
did.
the most important part.
That's right.
What other questions are there?
That's
Exactly.
what we wanted. We wanted to hear her story.
Yeah.
And I think we got everything out of it that we could get.
And we want to hear
out there.
yours, Pam. Are you ready to come on after the break?
Sure.
All right. We will be back with Scoop 2 in just a second. Scoop Squad Truth Squad is brought to you in part by T Graphics on Charleston's west side. For 38 years, this Charleston-based business has provided in-house professional screen printing, commercial-grade heat transfers, very important to set us apart from the cricket world, and embroidery, promotional products, advertising, specialties, distribution, serving clients locally, regionally, and nationally. Superior service, quality goods, and on-time delivery. Call 304-345-4816 or go to tgraphics.com. That's teegraphics.com. And by Quinn Computers. With many of us working from home, connectivity is more important than ever. Let Quinn Computers in Spring Hill take care of all your computer challenges. Computer and laptop service, all brands, network troubleshooting and repair, wireless network, VPN installation and support, security and firewall installation and support, backup and recovery service, remote systems administration. www.quinntechnology.com. That's www.quinntechnology.com.
You're listening to the Scoop Squad Truth Squad, brought to you in part by Quinn Computers in Spring Hill and by Eggplant on Bridge Road. Your Scoop Squad Truth Pod. Our sponsors include Chris Walters at Integrity Insurance, offering auto, home, life, business, workers' compensation, and pet insurance, which is health insurance for your dogs and cats that covers those specialty foods, illness, surgeries, medications. You can find them at 16 Capitol Street in Charleston, and you can call them at 346-9181. Find them at www.iigwv.com. We're also sponsored by Eggplant on Bridge Road, anything but ordinary. Go to eggplantshop.com. Also by T Graphics on the west side, 312 Buchanan Street. tgraphics.com for screen printing and embroidery. They've been around since 1984. Call them at 345-4816. Also, our latest sponsor is Call Ditto Marketing. Keep your brand moving. Call ditto.com.
And you're back with Scoop 2 of the Scoop Squad Truth Pod. And as promised, we are going to make a nice, easy transition. We've got Pam Garrison on the phone. She is with the West Virginia Poor People's Campaign. And I learned about Pam reading the Gazette yesterday. And what caught my attention was the article was on Cabinet Secretary Jeff Sandy, who is retiring at the end of this month. He is the Cabinet Secretary for Homeland Security here in the state of West Virginia. And the governor was heralding Secretary Sandy, singing his praises. And Pam, how did you feel about that?
Well, I feel like it's a slap in the face to West Virginians, and especially all the families that have lost members in the jail system. We feel like Jeff Sandy should be held accountable. Jeff Sandy went into Homeland Security in 2015. He's been in there this long. Over the past 10 years, we've lost over 100 West Virginians in the jail systems.
And Pam, you're the tri-chair of the West Virginia Poor People's Campaign. It's an organization involved in criminal justice reform, especially looking for changes in the state correctional system. Is that correct?
We are. I'm the tri-chair of the West Virginia Coordinating Committee. We're a civil rights movement. We're not an organization. We're a movement.
Okay.
We were the last project of Martin Luther King when he was assassinated, to bring together clergy, poor working people, people of morals, to come together and vote for our interests, that we could create our own voting block, we could have our own electorals that would work for the people, that would help us lift from the bottom up. And so that is what we are. And we are all over, we're in 36 states. There's coordinating committee in West Virginia. We've got members from all over West Virginia, Northern, Huntington area, Upshur County, all over. And we're all coming together. And we're not just about the jail systems. We're about the 5 interlocking injustices: systemic racism, systemic poverty and denial of health care, the war economy, the nationalism, the religious nationalism. We fight all the ecological devastation in West Virginia. All these civil rights issues we stand up for. We stand with the people, and what we do is we give a platform, kind of like what y'all do. We give a platform for the people. We don't give our stages to delegates. We don't give it to. We are about policies. We are not about party. We're about holding them accountable and about lifting up from the bottom, working for the people. And that is something that we are lacking very much in West Virginia.
What I've heard is that, and it may have been your campaign or maybe one of the others, that said that we are, and maybe other states are, addicted to incarceration, that the correctional understaffing focus misses a bigger overpopulation picture. And you and I talked on the phone a little bit. I'd like to get into that a little bit more deeply. You said that a lot of this population is pre-trial, people that haven't even been convicted yet.
Yes, a large number of the people that are in there awaiting trial. And a lot of them, they're not making it back out. Like I said, Mr. Stephen Robertson was in there for littering because he didn't get his mom's place cleaned up fast enough. He was in there for 81 days waiting for pre-trial, waiting to go to trial before he was killed.
Was this the one in the Eastern Panhandle?
No, he's from over in Raleigh County.
Okay.
A lot of these are in the Southern Regional Jail. In the last 10 years, we had over 100 people died in the jails. Since 2022, in the last year, we've had 52 people to die. And these are all under Sandy's watch.
That's right.
What went on with the police, the shadow accounts, the rape accusations, the filming juveniles and filming women and everything. All this is under Sandy. And he gets to say medals and flags to go out with his full retirement. That's not right. Nobody has been held accountable for none of this stuff.
I guess you could tie a thread to Jeff Sandy and his administration, because he's over the state police, he's over the jail system, and the regional jails. And did you not mention that most of these deaths and injuries are coming at the regional jails?
Yes, most of these are coming from the regional jails. And a lot of that is because of the overcrowding. our jails, when they went from our county jails to our regional jails, all they did was create mini prisons. They're just mini prisons. And then they've kept the price per denim at $40-some for years and years and years. These people are on shoestring budgets. That's what they're getting, the kind of food that they're getting and stuff. Mr. Shrewsbury was killed because of his food. A lot of them are getting beat up and killed because the inmates, the locks don't work. They're going into the other cells and they are beating up and taking people's food and things. The correctional officers are using hygiene products, toilet paper, women's menstrual pads, things like that, almost like a weapon against them.
So withholding them,
Yes,
for
withholding them. And then the delegates, they just had a bill down there that they voted down that would supply many menstrual pads and things to our women in our jails and stuff. They voted that down. I mean, that's nasty. The commissaries and stuff are so high that they're just robbing families.
because they have to buy things from the commissary
When they go visit.
using their money or money they earn from labor in
so
the prison.
this is in the prison, not the
In the
people that
regional
come to
jails.
visit. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Yeah, in
now
the jail.
the regional jails, you have to understand, are not prisons. They're not designed to be prisons. They don't have the
Right.
equipment, the infrastructure of a prison.
I see.
So when you just throw these people into what should be temporary facilities,
I see.
and then try to make it into a prison, this is where the breakdown is.
I see.
And I don't understand why nobody else can seem to grasp this, because you don't see this as much in the regular prisons. Am I right?
Right. And a lot of it just keeps getting downplayed and shuffled under the rug and things. That's like Jeff Sandy after Miss Gilly was tore to pieces in the Southern Regional Jail because the other inmates had been told that she had drugs on her and she didn't. That was just told to them. After that, Jeff Sandy did remember his investigation that was about a whole 2 weeks, and then he's like, oh, there's no problems.
Right.
There's no problems with the jails. Everything's just great, hunky-dory. We met with the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department, the West Virginia Poor People's Campaign, and some of the families. They even said that was a sham investigation.
So these are built to be holding facilities, so to speak, or short-term sentences, and
Right.
That's not the reality these days. It looks like we have basically.
So how many prisons do we have in West Virginia? Just
We have, I know we have Mount Olive in
Okay.
Fayette County. I believe there's one in the eastern part of the state. Those are, and then of course there are some federal prisons which are different. But
so the regional jails.
regional jails are meant to support multiple counties at the same
Okay.
in one place. So people in like Putnam County, Cabell County, Mason County, Lincoln, they may go to the southeastern.
Okay.
The South Central Regional Jail is here in Kanawha County.
Right.
So it's going to handle some surrounding areas like Boone and Kanawha.
So how long are these people, Pam, like, do you have like an average of what's the longest someone has been kept in a regional jail?
They've been kept in there for up to a year or longer,
Oh my gosh.
waiting for trial.
Wow.
And then there is so many, this whole system is just so messed up, and it's just so corrupt. That's like, all right, the family, some of them was notified. There was some black families that the way they found out about their family member was they called to make the bail for them and was told they were dead. That's how they found out. And then Miss Carpenter, it took her 11 months before all these medical examiners, the majority of them are coming back natural causes. Well, most families can't afford a second autopsy. The Burks family did scrape and rounds and borrow enough money, $5,000 for a second autopsy. All right, they said he died of natural causes. Her son had both wrists broke from where he was beaten in handcuffs. He's got broken bones and bruises from head to toe, massive trauma to the head. That's what killed him. But how many of our West Virginians has been buried thinking natural causes, and it wasn't? Miss Carpenter, her husband was 79 years old in an electric wheelchair in Southern Regional Jail, but for a capias. He's dead. They killed him in there. They got in his cell and killed him. It took her 11 months later before she found out what happened to her husband. And this is, I mean, it's just, we had testifiers of witnesses from up in Northern Regional Jail that for 3 days a man asked for help. He was told, "Oh, we're checking into it. Oh, yes, we'll go get you something." He was ignored to the point where he couldn't yell no more. He could only moan and groan, to where the other inmates started asking for help for him, and they were threatened to be put in the hole. And then the third day, there was no more moans and groans. He was dead. This is the kind of atrocities that we're trying to get attention that is going on in our systems that is inhumane, and putting a coat of paint over the mold and stuff, that ain't solving. And correctional pay, that is a Band-Aid on an open artery, is all that is. Mm-hmm. That is not going to solve the problems. They've offered benefits and stuff, and they've hired a few, and they've had more to quit. It was just testified down at the legislature this last time. They've had more to quit than they've had to hire.
Right.
That's
if
amazing.
they do not address this whole situation, I don't care what they pay. Decent people cannot stay under that kind of corruption, that kind of injustice.
Right.
How can you? And then we have our governor telling us everything's just great, hunky dory. We got this humongous surplus. Well, why are you starving our departments and everything? Then if we got this big surplus, how can we have billions of surplus and be the third poorest state in the nation?
Right. And just to give you an idea, in 1992, the state's average inmate population, prison and jail population, was 2,138. In 2021, it was 5,630. That's well over double what it was, and the population's been going down. So what is the system doing?
Yeah.
And is it
Well,
all
that's
drug related?
That's how they've dealt with our opioid epidemic. What did we hear? We can't gel our way out of this problem. What did they do? They tried gelling their way out of this problem. And we've had hundreds of millions. We got over $1 billion sitting down there in opioid fund that has not been used to address this problem, that has not been used for the people. Most of us, our families, the ones who survive of our families, either they're dead, maimed, or in jail. And that is how they have dealt with the opioid epidemic. They have not used the drug courts. They have not used the recovery centers. Back in 2021, HB 3304 was passed that would expand work release. It never got off the ground. 2023, they created a study. They was going to create a study committee on diverting people with disabilities from the criminal justice system. That's never even been convened, not even the first time.
And I guess you may not have seen, because this is something I picked up on the newspaper website, that the governor was vague about the possible special legislative session, because there's been pressure on him to try to have a special session to address not only, our incarceration issue and the, of course, and the employment issue that goes along with it, but also the foster care program. And he just says it's premature to consider calling lawmakers back to Charleston. And, somebody's got to take leadership of this. I know he wants them to have some kind of agreement, the House and the Senate, before, he convenes a special session. But, I think we're at the point now where he has to be a leader and be in town and get this thing settled.
Yeah.
And he's not doing it. He's a stay-at-home, stay out of the governor's mansion official. And I don't care what the lawsuit said and how that was settled, he's still not staying in Charleston. And you
Well,
can see
we're throwing
the
parties for the
problems.
cabinet secretary who's retiring.
Yeah, he will come in
who-
for that, but it just
And
grinds
that's
my...
what we've been getting. The legislatures point the finger at justice. Justice points the finger at the legislatures. Last month, we had our Moral Congress in Washington, D.C. Some of the families went with us. We visited Senator Manchin, Senator Capito, Representative Mooney, Representative Miller. We took them pictures. We took them the autopsy reports. We took them letters from the families. They cannot say they are not aware of what is going on here. We have heard silence and shuffling under the rug. Anytime it's ever mentioned, the only thing they ever come out with is correctional officers pay. That is their dodge.
That's the response that you get from the state senators?
Well,
Or from the United States senators?
It's just more or less, acknowledge, and they didn't know, they can't say they didn't know now because we took it to them.
So what was when you were in Washington, would you say last month you were there?
Yeah.
What did you get any response or reaction or help or promise of help or anything?
Not really. No, we didn't. Like I said, they took our autopsy reports, they listened to us and things, but as far as getting any resolve or anything, not even nothing. And that's what we've gotten in West Virginia. We are under a one-party rule. It's like an oligarchy here, and they cover and hide for each other. They dodge, they spin, and we're not buying it, and we're not stopping, and we're not taking it.
Right.
And
It's like we went from one party rule for 60 years to another party, but it looks like we've got to get people talking to each other.
That's right.
to hold accountability. We've
Yeah.
got to have accountability. Nobody
Absolutely.
is being held accountable for nothing that is happening.
Pam, did you lose someone in the jails?
I've lost family members to the opioid epidemic. I work closely. I am one of the poor. I'm down here with them.
Mm-hmm.
I see it. I live it.
Are you visiting
You know.
are you in the system, in the prison and jail system, trying to help out?
No, I'm just, as far as, being a voice for them and things like that, and trying to get the people who can do something,
But are you
who
able-
are in these positions.
Are you able to get in and talk to them as a visitor, or kind of make a record of things that are going on there?
Mostly the ones that we have talked to has been already out, and the families, we have been reaching out to the families. And like I said, we've been trying to give the families a stage and trying to get the families into where they can speak to the legislatures and things. We invited 30 legislators to our last rally in Beckley. Of every one of the representatives that represent the counties that send their people to the Southern Regional, we had one delegate to show up, Todd Kirby. He was the only one that would come and speak to the families, that would even listen to us. And that is what we've been getting the whole time. Any which way we go,
Yeah.
it is them sticking their fingers in their ears, and they won't listen to us. They act like if they ignore us, it don't happen. It ain't happening.
Well, so what's next? What do we do? What's next?
We at the rally that we just had in over in Beckley.
Beckley.
We came together, and more of us are coming together.
Mm-hmm.
I was with the ACLU, Friends of Convicted People, Raleigh County NAACP, which is she is the state NAACP too. We're reaching out with other partners and speaking. We're going to, if they ain't listening to us by February, we're calling for all of West Virginia to be in Charleston in February with us. If they will not listen to us here and there, when we all are gathered together and we're in one heart, one mind, one voice, they will listen to us.
Well, Pam, we're just about out of time, but you are from West Virginia, from what I can tell, and
Born and bred.
so you are not coming in from the outside to kind of say, hey, look here, look, we're kind of used to that. These are finally we have people who are homegrown that are
Right.
shining a spotlight on these kind of problems.
Yeah. Hey,
There is solutions.
yeah, go ahead.
That is it. There is solutions.
What are they? What are they?
Well, like I said, they could start enforcing the caps on the jails. It used to be if you put somebody in and the jail was already full, or somebody that was about ready to get out, or what could go into another program or something, then they would have to put them there before they could put more in there. They haven't been doing that, and now that's why we've got the overcrowded. I think our jail over there is supposed to hold like 468 people. We've got 717 people in it.
Jeez.
That's pretty common on all of the regional jails.
And that's what's happening. That's the reason this is not just a southern problem. This is not just a southern regional jail problem. This is the same thing that is going on in every one of our jails all across our state.
Right. The North Central Regional Jail has 750 inmates. Capacity is only 564.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
And that's
on
that's in
August
Doddridge County.
19th, we will be in Martinsburg. We will be at the Jefferson Jail. We will hold our next rally there. We're going to keep gathering people. We're going to keep hitting these jails until February, and then we're calling all West Virginia to Charleston in February.
Where can people learn more? Do you have a website or social media?
Yes, I would love for people to go. They could go to wb@poorpeoplescampaign.org, sign up for our Action Network. That way, when we're doing actions, when we need to give you information, you can get and you'll know what we're doing and when we're doing it.
Oh, that's great information, and we will link to that on our Facebook page as well, Pam.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Like I said, that's what it's going to take. Nobody's listening to us. Nobody cares. The government ain't caring. Our governor ain't caring. Our legislatures ain't caring. It's up to the people. We have to take care of us. And that's West Virginians are great at that. We've been doing this. We've fought the mine wars. We know how to do it. We are experts at scrounging and survival, because in West Virginia, that's what we've had to do is survive,
do you think
not
this is
live.
Do you think this is a 21st century version of the mine wars of the 20s and 30s, where people were forced to live in poverty and get paid in company scrip?
Pretty much. I mean, you look at what our minimum wage is, hasn't been raised or anything, and we've gotten all this money and everything. Ain't nobody mentioned raising our wages or anything. That's why I've never seen homelessness like it is now. People can't make $8.75, $9 an hour and pay $1,000 or more a month rent, and then have kids and everything on top of that. I mean, everything is just set up against us. And so we can do better. We have got the resources down there. Our legislators and our governor has just hoarded to where, and has not invested. I've been with the gas wells capping that's poisoning all of our people. There's hardly any department. There's hardly any inspectors even in there or anything. We can do better than this.
Mm-hmm.
I understand.
And we have to.
Yeah, I understand. And, we're thankful that you're here and becoming a voice
Yes,
for
we're
this
very
is probably the
thankful for
most
that.
underrepresented population.
Yeah.
We're going to take a break and come back with some other things that
Yes.
are probably just as equally outrageous, but it would be tough to be this outrageous.
To beat that. Hey, Pam,
But
thank
we
you
can
so
always
much.
find it.
And thank you so much for coming on and
luck.
sharing.
And come
good
back
luck to
again.
you. Yeah, come back. We would love to have you back, and I hope you'd like to come back.
Oh, I'd love to, and thank you, and thank your listeners. And like I said, I hope it stirs that spark of hope, and they join us.
Well,
Me
go
too.
to our Facebook page, Scoop Squad, Truth Squad.
Yep.
Follow us, but also get the podcast on wherever you usually get yours, on Apple Podcasts or Spreaker or any of those, and then just share it with your friends. Now,
All right,
have them
Pam.
share it.
Thank you so much, and we'll be in touch. And good luck to you. God bless.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, we'll be back with the third scoop in just a second.
Brought to you in part by Quinn Computers. With many of us working from home, connectivity is more important than ever. Let Quinn Computers in Spring Hill take care of all your computer challenges. Computer and laptop services, all brands. Network troubleshooting and repair. Wireless network VPN installation and support. Security and firewall installation and support. Backup and recovery service, remote system administration, and more at quintechnology.com.
If you would like to tie your business with this popular podcast, you can contact me, Ron Hughes, to advertise at ron.hughes, ron.hughes, at wvradio.com, or you could call me at 304-342-8131. You're listening to the Scoop Squad Truth Squad, brought to you in part by Quinn Computers in Spring Hill and by Eggplant on Bridge Road. Your Scoop Squad Truth Pod. Our sponsors include Chris Walters at Integrity Insurance, offering auto, home, life, business, workers' compensation, and pet insurance, which is health insurance for your dogs and cats that covers those specialty foods, illness, surgeries, medications. You can find them at 16 Capitol Street in Charleston, and you can call them at 346-9181. Find them at www.iigwv.com. We're also sponsored by Eggplant on Bridge Road, anything but ordinary. Go to eggplantshop.com. Also by T Graphics on the west side, 312 Buchanan Street. tgraphics.com for screen printing and embroidery. They've been around since 1984. Call them at 345-4816. Also, our latest sponsor is Call Ditto Marketing. Keep your brand moving. Call ditto.com.
And you're back with the third scoop of the Scoop Squad Truth Pod. We just got off the phone with Pam Garrison, who is with the West Virginia Poor People's Campaign. Is that the title? Correct
Yes.
title? Okay.
Yes.
So, whoa, that was emotional. What was your takeaway, Adam?
My takeaway was, the population in the regional jails has just about doubled, here recently. But yet, according to the Division of Corrections, Executive Officer Brad Douglas has reported in the Gazette this week, the facilities have vacancy rates at about 40% in terms of, the
Employment.
employment.
Right.
So we've doubled the number of people in the jails, but only have half the staffing that we would have needed. I mean, there's no conceivable way in which
that works. Right.
No, and these jails are 30 and 40%, or 25 and 30 plus percent over capacity.
And I'm going to say that I am one of those people that I didn't understand the concept of a regional jail, and maybe a lot of people don't.
Yeah, so jails are like basically holding places,
right?
Until they can go
to prison,
or if they are out, or
right, or whatever.
Out, but
I mean, some people get sentenced just to jail. Maybe somebody's in contempt
30 days,
of court.
right?
They're not going to go to prison,
right?
But people that are arrested for littering should not be stuck in a long-term
for 81
facility.
days until
that should be a $0 bail right there. That's ridiculous. Not harming anyone,
right?
Like for him to hold a place that.
Yeah, someone else might.
That's doing more societal harm than good.
Absolutely.
That's just heartbreaking.
I'd imagine, that most people that listen to this podcast, and, me especially, are, consider ourselves to be small government kind of people. But there's no way in which, the government can accept responsibility for these people, which they should be.
Right.
And then do such a terrible job of it. I mean, that's just.
And one thing Pam talked to me about earlier today was, so many of the people that are locked up are disabled. She mentioned one that was in a wheelchair.
The guy in the wheelchair.
But also people that are deaf. They get beat up because they don't acknowledge somebody talking to them, and they don't know. Because they can't hear them. They can't hear them. They don't know they're being talked to.
And there's got to be some kind of mental illnesses too.
Absolutely.
That is very emotional.
Those are not the facilities for those people.
Yeah. Well.
And honestly, I think we all need to step back and stop and really realize how important our vote is. We're talking about going in front of our state legislature I think we need to step back and research these candidates and not just vote on people with name recognition.
Right.
You know,
what they
actually
stand
research,
for.
see what they voted, your incumbents, how are they voting? There's a lot of Republicans and conservatives that are voting with the liberals.
Right.
We need to know that. And it's about taking responsibility and getting the right people in the job.
Well, another thing she mentioned was the opioid money and how that, and the surplus. I mean, she's right about that. Like, we've got,
Where's it
the
going?
governor touts this huge bill, I don't know how many $1 billion surplus.
I think it was, what, 1.6
Yeah.
billion?
We've got opioid money that's coming in the billions. I mean,
I'm sorry, 1.8 billion.
yeah, I mean, we've got opioid money, settlement money coming, and she's right. Like, it doesn't seem to be going to the people
No,
who were affected by the opioid crisis.
just to show you, what kind of money $1.8 billion is. That used to be 30 years ago. That was the budget for the whole state. Now
Oh, my
that's the
goodness.
surplus.
Now that's the surplus.
Now, I know there's been some inflation,
Yeah.
but not that much.
Well, and I just feel for her and the families that have been affected, and with Secretary Sandys, his, what did he do? Retirement, that's coming up and being lauded and applauded, and he's been there since 2015.
Right. And this seems to be when the crisis, took place.
Yeah, and it's
we
really
didn't
no
hear
different
much
than
of that before.
It's really no different than the administration and people on council saying, the chief didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing to see here.
In my mind, it comes down to two things. Either you're part of the cover-up or you're in the cover-up or you're incompetent.
Yeah.
And either way, you don't need to be having that job.
Exactly.
But I think the good news is Mark Sorcea was named as his replacement.
Correct, from
and
Putnam
Mark
County.
Sorcea, I've known about,
Yes.
and I think I've met him a few times over the last 30 years. He's
Yes.
been a prosecutor in Putnam County for a long time. He's the kind of guy that gets things done.
Yeah. Well, speaking of opioid money and the requirements that come along with that opioid money, there is a public meeting, right, Adam? Is that tomorrow with the Women's Health Clinic?
Is it Thursday?
No, it is not at the clinic.
Oh,
Actually,
it's not
it
at the
is-
clinic.
yeah,
It's at Goodwill, right?
Yeah, it's going to be at the Goodwill on Virginia Street
Okay.
West, not at the Women's Health
But on
Center.
Thursday.
Do you-
Yes, and it's
the
going
day
to be on
Why?
this
Thursday.
podcast is released.
Do you know why?
No.
Okay. Is that unusual that it
They probably needed a bigger
just
facility.
needed a facility
Mm-hmm.
to house people? Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe they didn't want to have them,
But they want
at the
they want
facility
a
where the
harm
records are gonna be-
reduction
yeah.
program. They want to add a harm reduction program.
Will you repeat that so people...
So it's tomorrow evening at 6:00.
Well, that's going to be people listening on Thursday. That's
Yes,
tonight.
tonight. You're going to be listening to this. We'll post it. I've posted it a couple times. It's on the Facebook page, and we'll make sure that you have the information.
This
But-
podcast should be out by afternoon, so you should, if you're listening, you should be able to.
But
go
the
to
Women's
this.
Health Clinic wants to have a harm reduction program. We've talked about this there's a lot of money. There's a lot of money coming in the state with the opioid settlement, and lots of people want their hands on that money. And a harm reduction program is a good way to do it, especially if you can't do abortions anymore. So you need another revenue stream. So people on the west side are not happy about it. I hope that they are at that meeting and listen to the podcast after, and go make their voices heard.
Yeah, we covered it. They had, an initial, I wouldn't necessarily call it a public meeting because
Right.
they didn't really tell the public.
They just
Well,
told their
wasn't it
They had
friends.
a meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, they told
They
people
told their friends.
they told people that they thought would be receptive to the idea, and city council members that they thought would be receptive to the idea.
Yeah.
Not all city council members, for sure. And they need to hear at this meeting what your opinions are. Mm-hmm. How do you feel? In my mind, this is
Well,
a
let's give
complete-
a definition of harm reduction so everybody knows what page we're
Yeah.
on.
Adam, can you do that?
Yeah, for the harm reduction program, they will give away clean needles for your, so you can use drugs. They would say safely, and according to ordinance city council passed and state law, you have to bring in a certain amount of dirty needles.
Is it a one-for-one exchange?
Just about. If it's not 1-to-1, it's 95%.
Close.
It's very, very close. The intent was to be 1-to-1.
Why,
But, if you lose 1 out of 100, they don't want to turn anyone away.
Are they going to be using retractable needles, which would be safer? So that way, after you use it, the needle retracts up into the syringe so that you're not getting stuck with them. I know they're more expensive, but
I don't know. That might be a good
Yeah,
question.
Those
that
are
would
the
be a
questions we
question
need to
for
ask.
tomorrow as to what they plan on.
Right.
using.
They're also giving away Narcan, and
Yeah, at the public meeting,
Yeah.
they'll
tell you all
yeah,
that.
do that. And the Women's Health Center plans to refer anyone that comes in for these services to other health services, addiction and or recovery services. So that's what they want to do.
And so, what were you going to say
there?
before
But I was going
that?
to say, in my mind, as someone that has represented people, in that area, it's just completely unnecessary. Health Right on the East End has one of these services, and I don't hear of anyone clamoring that we need another one.
Well, Health Right
especially
also
not
has
even
a
2 miles away.
Well,
Aren't they
Health
in the
Right
west
also
side,
has
too?
the clinic. Health Right has a clinic on the East End and on the West Side, and the East End is the one with the syringe.
And they're
service.
adding on to that building.
Yes, they are.
Huge.
But Health Right on the West Side doesn't.
No, they don't offer that-
They don't
that
offer
service.
that service, and people need to ask themselves why. I mean, it's just not needed.
Yeah, and per our
That's
investigation,
not where
or
the
when
money
we-
should go. Listen to Pam Garrison.
when-
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
when we went to cover their non-public, public
Yeah.
forum, they said up front, and we're very open about it, that previously they had been the state's abortion provider.
Yeah.
For the laws passed by the legislature, they can no longer provide that service. They need
to figure out
additional
another.
sources
That's
of
what they said.
revenue.
They needed.
They literally
said that.
It wasn't say, "Oh, we get requests every day for
Yeah.
these kind of services," or Health Right has
No.
come to us and they've said, we can't provide these. It wasn't anything about
No.
this service being needed, or
Yeah.
they want to help X amount of people because
Yeah.
they see it all day every day. It was we need more money.
And they literally threatened to kick the WCHS reporter off the parking
TV
lot.
reporter.
The TV reporter, if he interviewed anyone who was in opposition to the program.
Yeah, one other thing I'd like to
Yeah.
comment on that is if you can't make the meeting, because you may get short notice on it.
Yeah.
You can submit a written comment to the city clerk's office
Yes.
about how you feel. So if you want to do
Yes.
that,
especially
you
if
can email.
you've missed the meeting.
Yeah, if you missed the meeting, not sure what the deadline is in terms of how late you can submit the written requests, but they can be submitted to the
can
deputy
you make a note?
city clerk.
Yeah, go ahead. Say that again.
Yeah, you can submit it to Deputy City Clerk and Nikki Smith, and her email
Yeah.
address is nicole.smith@cityofcharleston.org, and that's NICOLE.
Okay.
Nicole.smith@cityofcharleston.org.
And Ron, would you make a note for us to put that on our Facebook page?
Sure.
All right. So before we go, we've got Elisa Payne. She was at Kanawha County School Board meeting. I just kind of love this, really, that we're all just like all over the place, all over the city.
Well, there's transparency issues at every level.
Yes. So what do you tell us about what happened during that meeting, Elisa?
Well, the biggest thing for me was I was able to make an appointment with Dr. Williams and Becky Jordan prior to the
And Dr.
meeting.
Williams is the superintendent of schools.
Thank you, sir.
Becky Jordan is on the school board
Yes.
as an elected member.
Yes.
Clearly, I'm not a journalist.
That's okay. We are doing the best we can.
I used to be. So.
It's all good. The couple things I wanted to bring back because I really think that they are making some progress in the right direction.
Okay. What are those? Good
They did
progress
narrow
things?
it down to one app to be on the child's iPad. And when a child downloads a book, the parent or guardian will be sent an email as to what book was downloaded.
Okay.
So the parent does have an opportunity to know what their child is reading.
Okay. What else was progress?
The Sora app will only be able to access Kanawha County library books. In other words, it's not open up to the world.
Okay.
So they are defining what that is. So whatever books they choose for elementary, middle, and high school has access to those.
Okay.
But elementary only has elementary access.
Okay.
Junior high or middle school has middle school and elementary access, and then high school has access to all of those books.
Okay.
And I think it's important that, age appropriate books
Yeah.
are separated for the individual age groups.
Yeah.
Yeah, because right now I found in doing some of my research, there's a book in a high school that's also in an elementary school. And there's something shady
There's something
about
wrong.
No.
And I also want to point out, because at that meeting, so your group, the people that you go to the Kanawha County School Board meetings with, have been going for a long time about this issue, and the board wasn't always very open to you guys, right? And then you found out something very interesting that you did not know, maybe where the hostility was coming from. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Well, there was a couple things at our last meeting. Rick Cavender invited Fairness
School
West-
board member, is that correct?
Yes.
School board. Thank you again. Invited members of West Virginia Fairness to come, and that really lit a fire under my butt. And so I reached out to Becky Jordan, who I have a casual relationship with through my work.
Yes.
And felt like she would be open to talking. And basically my text was like, we have to find some common ground. I think we can find some common ground. And she suggested bringing Superintendent Williams into the conversation, which worked out perfectly.
Yeah. And then he mentioned, because you said we're not book banning. Like he mentioned book banning. Like he was afraid.
Nobody wants to ban books or burn books.
But he mentioned something like you didn't know about the textbook controversy, and so you were
not.
like, oh well, no wonder. Like we're not talking about anything like that. But that
was a light bulb moment for me, because I am a transplant. I've been here for 25 years plus. So I'm. And actually, my grandfather's from Shinston, so I feel like a West Virginian at heart, and I've embraced the state and love the state, but I don't know a lot of the history at times. So I did get online and did research that, and I can understand. I mean, there was a lot of violence. There was violence directed toward children, and of which the superintendent was one of those children. He was on the bus. He had to duck because they were throwing rocks at the buses.
Right.
So I had bomb threats at my school every day.
So he was just kind of a little bit.
Both of them were, and I was like, oh snap! I
No
had
wonder.
idea.
Yeah.
Like zero.
See,
idea.
and see what happens when you get
And
together
that's-
with people and talk.
That's the thing. Like I wanted a dialogue. I
Yeah.
was tired of just saying what I wanted to say and them being snarky afterwards and never
And you not
being,
having being able to talk back,
or
right?
let me ask you, why
Follow-ups.
why are you acting like this?
Right.
What? Another thing I did want to say too is when you check a book out of the library, they are going to take pictures of those book covers and put them on the Schoology. So
right.
every parent has access
That's
to
the school
Schoology.
software that the students use.
Right, correct.
The learning software, and I guess how the teachers communicate with parents.
And also, syllabus will be on there. So if there's any book listed or any book that's going to be taught in the classroom, it will be on the syllabus, and you can then challenge that if you feel like it's necessary. So there are many opportunities now for parents to understand what their children are reading. But as parents, we need to step up and take those opportunities.
Excellent.
Right. And if there's a book that you feel it might not be age appropriate for
Right.
your student,
Right.
at least you have the opportunity to discuss that with your
And that's
child.
policy. They have to offer something else.
Yeah. And real quick before we wrap up, I just wanted to touch on, so at the beginning of the podcast, we talked about what happens when you put yourself out there and you demand accountability and transparency. You get a big target on your back. Your family's targeted. And that's kind of what you felt that Rick Cavender was trying to do.
I absolutely.
The member of the school board who brought in Fairness West Virginia, you felt like that was an intimidation tactic to shut you guys up, to scare you.
Yeah, as soon as they stood up and started talking, I'm like, this is shady. Like, he totally did this. He had a prepared speech at the end of it. They were buddy afterwards. And then comically to me, nobody from Fairness showed up at the next meeting.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, they were only
Shocking.
involved in that meeting.
Yeah. So they really weren't all that in on the topic.
No, they don't
were
care. They just there to
helping
be a bully.
They're helping
Helping their
buddy
guy out. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we'll remember that next election, right?
Yeah.
Because isn't Rick Cavender up for
Pretty soon.
re-election in 24?
That's my understanding.
All right. Who wants to run for school board?
Well, that's also
Adam?
in the primary election too. The school board is elected in the primary, so
yeah.
When you run,
That's right.
you
Yeah,
run-
that's right.
It's nonpartisan, and you run as one election. You don't have to do a primary and a general. So
Yeah. Elisa, anything else you got to touch on for us?
I did want to say real quick, too, that in a positive note, one of our candidates for U.S. Senate, Chris Rose, did go on a national show talking about this and trying to bring the legislatures into a special session. So that would definitely tag on to what we were talking about.
He's running for U.S. Senate seat.
That's correct.
Currently held by Joe Manchin.
That is correct.
Okay.
And also there are the trend that I'm seeing nationally. Different states, different organizations are pulling out of the American Library Association. They feel like those funds can be spent better. The woman who is in charge of that now has defined herself as a Marxist lesbian who wants to queer up the library. I don't think that's our goal for the library. I mean,
For such a small percentage of the population, it sounds like she's trying to make it appear like that's the majority view.
Right.
And
It's weird.
I find that interesting.
Yeah.
so we're starting to see some good things, which
Yeah.
I'm happy about.
Well, that's good, man. I need some good news. Whew.
I guess I should describe myself as a Republican heterosexual.
I mean, if you're not on, well, in my opinion, if you're not on the side that's dominating the conversation right now, you're a racist,
Fascist.
We got
I've been called that.
called lots of names.
Well, no, I've been called
during that fairness.
when I've had discussions and I've tried to have open, honest discussions with people who may have a different opinion than me. I was just called an old Caucasian straight guy, and I said you
My
left out
goodness.
fat,
They were trying to be nice.
Well,
Yeah.
all
They weren't
right.
interested in the opinions of an old Caucasian white guy or an old heterosexual white guy.
Is there anything else? Did we leave anything off?
I think
feel
we've
like we-
covered everything. It's-
Adam, you got anything to add?
Oh, I could add for hours.
All right, come back next week.
Maybe we ought to do some kind of live thing on Facebook.
I feel like we do.
I think we could pull that off.
I think we could.
If our spouses don't kill us.
We could talk for hours. There's just so much, like she said, corruption. You could just go on and on and on. But thank you for the good news, the progress that we're making. And I was encouraged by Pam tonight. It kind of pumped me up.
Absolutely.
So we're just going to keep fighting the good fight. And we will talk at you next week, Charleston, West Virginia. Bye, Adam. Bye, Ron. Thanks,
Bye.
Elisa.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me.
Bye. Rebroadcast, retransmission, or transcription is not permissible without the expressed approval of Scoop Squad Truth Squad. Copyright 2023. The opinions on Scoop Squad Truth Squad are those of the hosts and the guests, and not those of WVRC Media. Copyright 2023.